Hi there, we're back here and we're going to do a series of videos. Hopefully it'll only be a three-part series, depending on how long this goes on our 10 favourite directors of all time. Now there's many things to take into account when constructing such a list, such as the quality of work versus consistency and ambition. There are directors who have made some astonishing films but also have some unappealing work, who in the balance of things did not make the list. Also extra points given to auteurs who write, edit, score, or any combination of these things, as well as direct. You also have directors who appear to be on the right path more or less, but do not have quite enough films under their belt to quite make the list either. So before we go start on the top 10 countdown, we're going to go through numbers 20 to 11. Who are also all directors who are very close to making the top 10, but here we go. Number 20 we have Walter Hill, who had a very good run, especially early in his career. I have several of his films here, a favourite of mine being The Driver. For me it's his masterpiece. He also did it 48 Hours, The Warriors, Crossroads, some other films which I don't have here, like Another 48 Hours and Southern Comfort, also very good. Number 19 we have Paul Thomas Anderson. He's a fairly consistent director, but he's probably going to be moving up into the top 10 if he continues on the path of putting out great films. I have three of his films here. I used to have Punch Drunk Love on DVD. I've sold it waiting for the Blu-ray of it, which hasn't been announced, but hopefully it will come. There Will Be Blood being my favourite film of his. It's one of my favourite films of all time. Also Boogie Nights is excellent. Magnolia is good, if not a little flawed in my opinion. Number 18 is a great old director, one of my personal faves. He has a problem with consistency, but these are the films of his that I own. Sorcerer, which is amazing, and also The Exorcist, which is amazing. These are his two masterpieces as far as I'm concerned. I have both in some sweet digibooks here. More recently he's put out Killer Joe and Bug, which I like quite a lot. There's some other films I quite like, but a lot of films that I really don't care for, such as Jade and To Live and Die in LA. He also did The French Connection, which is very popular. I quite like it, but not enough to own it. So he's a strong director. He's had some phases which weren't so good, but some of his early and some of his latter work has been pretty decent. Number 17, we're going to go with John Carpenter, who was kind of a career of two halves, with the first half of his career being amazing and the second half of his career being quite diabolical, which has already pushed him down. He has done some of my favourite films of all time, such as The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China, Halloween, other films I like quite a lot, like They Live, Christine, and hopefully The Escape from New York. I'll be picking up the Shout Factory Blu-ray of this, or Scream Factory I should say, when that comes up mid next year. And number 16 we have Alfonso Cuarón. I only have two of his films here on Blu-ray, but he's also done some other excellent films. These are very high quality works, and he could have fallen into the category of not had enough work to really qualify just yet, but his other work has been very strong. Romeo Tombayen and the very best Harry Potter film, Prisoner of Azkaban. Number 15 is Roman Polanski, one of all-time favorite directors, but again one that trouble with consistency. Right here in my collection we have Chinatown, The Criterion of Rosemary's Baby, underrated Ninth Gate, and Repulsion. I didn't bother getting the Blu-ray of this, as I thought the DVD looked pretty good. And I also used to have The Tenant on DVD. I've sold that. It's a terrible looking DVD, hoping that a Blu-ray will come out of that. I really want The Tenant back in my collection, but in high definition. I also like from him Better Moon and Venus and Furs, but he has a lot of other films which I don't care for so much, like Fearless Vampire Killers. 14 we have The Expert Craftsman, David Fincher, who's only made a couple of films I dislike, and a few films which I like, but not. I got this because it was super cheap. I like it, but not really enough to pay big bucks for. But love Social Network, Zodiac's a masterpiece, one of my all-time favourites. Fight Club, of course, Seven, and The Criterion of the Game here. I'm not sure if I'll pick up Gone Girl. It was good, but it's kind of in that Girl with the Dragon Tattoo category, where I found it for $3 or $4. I'd probably pick it up. Number 13 is Sergio Leone. Probably lack of variation really cost him, as he's mostly westerns, but such an innovator in camera work and storytelling. I've got all of his major films here. You know, he did a couple of early works before he really got his own style and his own control of his projects that are not really considered a good example of his work. But all of these films, Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more, Good, the Bad and the Ugly, Once Upon a Time in the West, Duck You Sucker, aka Fistful of Dynamite, aka Once Upon a Time in the Revolution, and Once Upon a Time in America, his gangster flick. Very influential director. Perhaps if he'd had more films or more variation, he might have even been higher. But you know, so close. All these directors so close to be pushing into the top 10. And a guy that Leone influenced a lot is Quentin Tarantino. Neck and neck with Leone, could have gone back and forth. I just think he has a little more variation. He does steal a lot of people, but he does write all his own films, directs them, edits them, chooses the music, and his films are a blast. The only films of his I don't like are the 2 Kill Bill films. I have all the others here. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Death Proof, Glorious Bastards, and Django Unchained. And number 11, just missing out, is Kar-wai. I have 2 films of Wong Kar-wai's on Blu-ray. In the Mood for Love off Criterion, beautiful film, stunning, and My Blueberry Nights. Now, I did have 2046 and Days of Being Wild, which are connected to In the Mood for Love on DVD. I've sold them, hoping that we will get a Blu-ray release, and fingers crossed those will come so I can get those back in my collection. 2 that I won't be bothering to replace from DVD to Blu-ray is Chunking Express and Fallen Angels, which I like very much, but I'm happy enough with these transfers to not double dip. Okay, so that's 20 to 11. Now we're going to start the true countdown. Number 10. Possibly a controversial choice on the list is Paul Verhoeven. The Dutch director made a lot of films in his homeland and got a lot of acclaim for early work like Turk Fruits and The Fourth Man and many others, but it's really his American films that I prefer. Such brazen sexuality and violence, and not afraid to cross some social lines that people might not be ready for. Real boundary pusher is Paul Verhoeven. Whether he's making what seems like an innocent blockbuster or not, there's always something else in there. We have, of course, RoboCop, a master work in violence and satire, and Total Recall did a wonderful job with the Philip K. Dick film. Basic Instinct, it's it's like Hitchcock, all sexed up, just wonderfully made, great performances, everything really came together on this. Starship Troopers, a film that didn't sit right with American audiences, as kind of showed them by the end of the film that they were the Nazis in this equation, but a wonderful satire as well, and a Dutch film that he went back and did more recently, Black Book, a wonderful World War II thriller. He had his famous bump along the road is of course Showgirls, which in retrospect some people are saying is intended to be as bad as it was, to be some kind of satire. I actually don't agree. It certainly has some satire in it, but it is just an awful film. But other than that one misstep, he also has Hollow Man, which some people don't like. I didn't mind that. It's kind of like a fun slasher film dressed up as an Invisible Man film. So he's been pretty consistent, hell of entertaining, and a really good craftsman, and he's just kind of insane, which comes across on the screen. So going to number 9, we have Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick, of course, is probably a lot of people's favourite director. Some people accuse him of being cold. I think he is a little bit cold in the display. There's only a couple of three films I dislike of his, and the rest of his storied career I'm quite happy with. I have 8 of his films here on Blu-ray. My favourite is, of course, 2001, an absolute visual and oral masterpiece. Also, my other favourites are The Killing. This edition also comes with Killer's Kiss, which is an underrated early film of his, and Eyes Wide Shut and Full Metal Jacket. Now, this could have been a masterpiece if it wasn't for Nicole Kidman. She really ruins this film for me, but everything else about it is wonderful. The Shining, of course, is a very interesting film. It has multiple layers going in it. And Doctor Strange, this one took me a couple of viewings to really get behind, but I really enjoy it. And of course his take on Lolita, which was handcuffed a little bit by the censors of the times, and he couldn't really do everything he wanted to, but what is here is quite wonderful. So, you know, Kubrick passed just before Eyes Wide Shut came out, but he has left us quite a legacy of film and so many things to talk about, and such inventive camera work. Funnily enough, the only films I really don't like of his are two of his more acclaimed ones, Barry Lyndon and A Clockwork Orange. I also don't like his first film, Fear and Desire, but that's more, that was just a film that he was kind of learning his job on, and he doesn't like it, but sort of self-funded film. But his two large productions I don't like, Barry Lyndon and A Clockwork Orange, but everything else I'm really happy with. So that's where we're going to stop today. Looking at the clock, it's a good amount of time. Hopefully we'll be able to get through the other 8 in the next 2 parts, the other 8 directors. So number 10 we have Paul Verhoeven, number 9 Stanley Kubrick, who will be next. Tune in to see next time.